You are now part of a social experiment.
See now where my limit is. Only got no ohs.
Another big topic that you've been speaking out about is finding out that a lot of young boys, especially young black boys, are being molested, and a lot of this stuff doesn't really get talked about, and they're uncomfortable speaking about it, but you kind of see it. So, what are some signs for parents that just really don't really even know what to look for of boys that might be dealing with these type of issues or have had this thing happen before?
It's happened a lot, as I've been working in my organization, man. I just ran into another scenario, just, a few days ago, man. And it's like boys don't really show many signs that the regular person would just notice. I'm always weary of the kids who don't want to go home. I start there. Like some of them, I have to sift between you don't want to go home because you want to hang out with us, or you don't want to go home because something's happening at home. The healthy kid still wants to go home at a point, so I'm just like, why you don't want to go home, and we'll, eventually dig through and find something there. Then you got, if a child is peeing in the bed, that is, a telltale sign, and peeing in the bed often.
You're talking about older kids?
Yeah, older kids, peeing in the bed. I had a kid I dealt with this. He was like 12, I think he was. And he was just constantly peeing in the bed, and not just peeing in the bed. The stench is an issue too. You have to realize the smell. I don't know what the body does when something's happening to it like that, but it releases a stench in that urine. And the stench was so strong. I never forget, it would fill the halls of the school. It was so strong when he would pee in the bed. I had to buy him Depends, to wear at nighttime so he wouldn't, wet the bed. But we had to throw his mattresses away, because you couldn't even clean them. It was so horrid. And the school's 41,000 square feet. It's gigantic. You would smell it on all different wings. I'm like, man, what's happening? So we just thought he just was eating bad. So we just constantly making sure he drinking water and eating right and all that. And it's just terrible. It just continues to be terrible. I'm like, what is happening? I'm like, Mama, can you take him to the doctor or something? We're not understanding, okay, he's peeing in the bed. We'll work through that. But the smell is, because we had other kids that pee in the bed, here and there, or whatever like that. But it didn't smell like that. It was terrible. Eventually, a month or two down the line, figured out that was happening to him, through a older cousin, who was only a couple years older than him. But then my brain also goes to, when they do it, then somebody had to do it to them for them to know what to do. Yep. Again, it's a whole chain there. And so I always say, I'm just I just feel like it's happening so much, because me personally, in my just friend groups, it has happened to most friends that I know. And not just people. Also, when people think about boys and molestation, they're thinking about other men, molesting boys. No, you're talking about grown women who are bothering young boys on a often basis. And the reason you don't hear about that much is because most boys take it as a badge of honor. It felt good, et cetera, et cetera. So it's it wasn't us being molested or whatever. For example, me, when I was younger, when it happened to me, I was 4, and, I hadn't really got into the big, bad touch, good touch conversation. So, but my mom, whenever I would go somewhere, she would always ask me if had anybody touched me or anything like that. And I'm like, nah, because when it was explained to me, it was explained something bad was happening. So when it was happening to me, it felt good. So I would constantly be trying to go to that house because I'm just hey, I want to go back and spend out there because it felt good. I didn't know what was happening. I just knew something was feeling very great every time I went over there. So I'm always going, like that. And I constantly, but when they finally had a conversation with me, hey, is anybody touching you again? They could be doing this and that. I'm like, oh yeah, somebody is touching me. I'm like, yeah, somebody is. After they kind of explained, I'm like, yeah. Right. And that situation got handled or whatever. But then at a point after that, I was mad that I told, because I was just like, dang, hey, I'm trying to get back, and go get that, whatever like that. I vividly remember all this, but boys won't say anything, because if nobody had been asking me, there would have been nothing for me to say, to be honest, because at the time, what I was thinking, that wasn't wrong. I'm like, this feels great. This lady's treating me really good. I'm excited to go over there. I have so much fun over there, man. She makes me feel so special. Makes me feel so great, but this happens, and even with 11, 12-year-old kids, even high school teenagers. We knew at school what all guys was banging the teachers. We knew it, whatever like that. But we weren't going to say nothing, of course, because we all like, man, hey,
Right,
yeah, boy,
right. It was
goddamn, you got me. What's going on? What,
absolutely,
man,
yep.
she came pick me up last night, and she hit me up, and blah, blah, blah. And nothing ever happened. Nobody ever told. And they don't go to the grave with it because it was always a trophy. But you were molested,
Yes,
So
sir.
again, these are conversations to have, but just talk to your kids, man. That's all I can say. Talk to them often, reassure them that they can talk to you about anything. If anybody's hurting them, constantly talk about, how things like that are wrong, and just talk about that often, and, drill it into their head if you got to. Hey, if anybody touches down here in any way, it's bad. If anybody, does this, it's bad. If anybody does this, it's bad. If anybody tries to make you do this, if anybody tells you to keep a secret, you come tell me. I'm supposed to know all secrets. Just again, just all these conversations, just drill in their head constantly. So even telling your kids, your address,
Yeah.
telling the kids your phone number, how to reach you. Or for example, my son and I went to Philadelphia recently, and it was just me and him. But before we went, while we were there, all the time, I'm constantly telling him what to do if he ever gets lost. I'm like, son, if you get lost, no need to cry. Do not cry. The first thing you do is find an adult, preferably a police officer, but if you can't find a police officer, go to someone, tell them that you're lost, tell them your father's name. You know how to type on a cell phone already. You know your address. You know my cell phone number. You find your daddy, whatever like that. But if somebody, hurts you, I've taught my son, even if somebody kidnaps him or something and tries to make him do things, son, I personally, and this is for me, now I don't know what everybody else tell their son, I would rather my son die than have to deal with somebody to harm him like that. I tell him, you bite, I don't care if you do everything you gotta do to make sure that they don't do nothing to you. I understand you small and tiny, but you gonna fight like Superman. And if they gotta kill you, then so be it. But I'd rather my child die than never have to deal with somebody molesting him or raping him or whatever however that goes. I'd rather my son go out like a warrior knowing that my son fought, because we went, because then when, let's say we find that out, I don't know what to do after that. What do I do? Like, okay, we can send him to therapy, but truly, what do I do? Because I'm your daddy.
The damage is done.
Yeah, I'm your dad. I'm your protector. You're looking for me to make sure nothing ever happens to you. So how do you ever trust me again? How do you see me now? Like, where do we go from there? I don't even know what to do as a father if that happens to my child.
Now, thinking about that, do you think it's extreme to be like, all right, well, I'm not going to leave my kid one-on-one with any adults. I'm not leaving them one-on-one with other kids their age like that, really, without supervision. Like, I'm going to be on it. Like, do you think that's extreme?
Not at all. I don't think it's an extreme. I always say kids need to play in front of you. I say it all the time because you don't know what kids are learning at their house. I say kids need to play in front of you all the time. You're not going to go upstairs. Y'all going to play in front of me right here. Yep. I don't believe in kids going along with a lot of people. I believe you should have a select little circle of people that the kids can be around alone. They're going to respect your wishes. So I have my son's teacher. I have my mom. I have, his mom, of course, her mom. But that's about it. Like, we're not going to let them go around too many other people by themselves. Because I know my mom is super overprotective like that because that happened to my mom and it happened to me. So I know my mom is like constantly like, girl, I watch my mom police him all the time. Hey, don't sit in nobody's lap like that. Hey, don't grab on nobody like that. Like, she just, again, polices everything that they do so that way they can understand. Or even having them put on clothes when people come around. Like we had this big blowout argument one time on Facebook about me talking about how children need to put on clothes when adults come around. And they were like, why should my kids have to put on clothes if they're at their house and I have a guest over? But my guest shouldn't be looking, and if you can't trust your guest, then blah, blah, blah. Just a whole bunch of women talking. I'm like, I'm like, so you're just going to let your daughter walk around naked if your uncle comes over or your granddad or even your dad, whatever. Well, I trust them, so why shouldn't they be able to walk around comfortable in their house? I'm like, it's a basic respect thing. My son, daughters, whatever, are going to put on clothes when any guests come over. Even my sons know not to walk around with their shirt off in front of their mom or their underwear. Like, these are basic life just rules and etiquette you build.
When you look at the data of when it happens, it's usually a close family member, so it's not like a stranger usually.
Absolutely. It's always a close family member, usually, or a close family friend or whatever. It's not like a stranger's doing it. It's always somebody you know. So I always, say, hey, make sure you put your kids on clothes. Make sure you dressing your kids like children. I mean, this is important because the way they let these little girls dress, man, it's insane and it's
Yeah.
ridiculous. And the stuff they say to justify it is insane because I have to explain to them. I'm like, listen, science says that a man cannot control what he's aroused by, and every time men try to act like they can, no, you can't control what you're aroused by, but you can control how you act on
Right.
it. However, everybody doesn't have the same self-control that other men have. So I understand when I tell you, listen, you need to put your child on some clothes because I understand that another man does not have self-control. He's not controlling himself and he's barbaric. He's going to do something to your child. Now, I'm not saying that, they won't bother a kid who's putting on clothes, but the chances are less likely for him to be aroused if your kid has their body covered and your daughter is full figured in middle school and you're allowing her to wear her breasts out and in very tight clothes that are showing their little camel toe and all that stuff. They just let them wear whatever. And I'm like, why would you even want your daughter to go to school like that?
Exactly.
Like, I'm like, what is wrong with you? But this is the stuff they say to justify this crap is insane. But hey, to each their own. That's why we wear uniforms at our school. Like, no, it's just gonna be straight uniforms. Uniforms, period.
So every day I'm going hard. I'm talking business, bank accounts, and credit cards. And somehow we defeat the odds and making sure that no one starve illegal. All you had to